The National Social Investment Program Agency has been in the news for some time, with some Nigerians criticizing its style of operation in reaching its target. That's the vulnerable in society. Now, how best can this agency work to serve the poorest of the poor it's designed to cater for? Now, how can corruption be eliminated or reduced to the barest minimum in its operations? Let's have this conversation with Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year again. I've said that so many times today already, but it's still, it's still fresh.
Yep.
So let's begin with the reactions we're getting, following the suspension of Hala Shu, the CEO of the NSIP. Rafsanjani's Sislak is saying it's unconstitutional that the president should follow due process. What's constitutional about this suspension?
Well, I don't know that she was appointed, she holds a tenured position, which requires National Assembly to confirm her. By the way, it's not even all confirmed National Assembly, all those confirmed by the Senate that have the same degree of protection, like the CBN governor. Like when I was in NEC as chairman, you need to go to the Senate with a written address and to third vote. But most other public officers, if you look at the Constitution, and even the Interpretation Act, which is what Jonathan people used against Sanusi, the president should have the authority to remove people who hold that kind of offices. This is not regulatory. They don't need that kind of protection. These are transactional, and they should work at the sufferance of Mr. President. So I don't think I would be surprised if National Assembly required. I don't even think a lot.
Even if she was confirmed by the
it does not.
By the Senate.
It doesn't follow that once you confirm it was good. So I don't think it's necessarily constitutional. And again, if there are allegations like this case, not yet proven,
there are allegations.
But police still have the right to step you down for the time being while the investigation continues. So I don't think it's unconstitutional at all.
Okay, so let's come to the allegation, alleged misappropriation of funds ostensibly set aside for the social intervention program. Would it be a surprise if, just, without conceding that she actually committed these offenses or crimes, if you like, does it explain why maybe the social intervention programs have hardly succeeded or delivered on the promise? The conditional cash transfer, she's also been, coordinator there. She actually served, with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and what have you, for 3 years.
I think that place has been a cesspit. I mean, the minister, the outgoing minister, has been indicted by the EFCC. I mean, latest report that probably they're looking for her for maybe arrest and some processes. Now it's in the structure of it. First is that cash transfers should now be guided by clear laws about entitlement, procedure. We know that corruption is, by definition, discretion minus control.
Right.
So the notion that we need to deal with the poor could become an excuse to rip off and to plunder the country.
And further impoverish the poor.
The poor. So the first thing is we need to have now, we now have a real sector, call it sector of poverty. I mean, if you have 153 million and counting who are dimensionally poor, and then with World Bank estimation with the 2023 energy price spiral and inflationary pressure, we might have 10 million more people get into poverty. So if you look at the MBS, baseline statistics of around 45 to 50% who are poor, so for 200 million people, it suggests that about 100 million at least,
if not more,
very poor, at least. So if you have that, that's a cottage industry of poverty. You now need to have laws that talk about transfers. You see, the cash transfer, American of transfers, as part of poverty mitigation measure, have to have clarity, entitlement. They have to be in substantial quantity. Research literature all over the world shows that it's not just all transfers. They have to also have the capacity to incent good behavior, improve proper allocation of resources by households. So if you give people 5,000 which they can chop, misuse, that doesn't help. substantial, regular, and targeted with conditions that kind of move them towards better choices. What
is there any particular
science we call nudging.
There any particular
so we don't have that clarity. That's number one.
Is there any particular template that can be devised in a way that you ensure that that control you talk about, can be in place in a way that this conditional cash transfer or social intervention programs can actually deliver on the promise at the end of the day?
Good. First is that you have to also build it around data. Okay, fine. So you need to. National Assembly makes lazy laws. For example, you can make
lazy laws.
Yes, because they don't really understand the social science of changing behavior. You make a law requiring them to first present the data to National Assembly for vetting. So they need to generate the data. That data has to be proven. Those who need to, and there must be transparency all the way from conception to transfer. And there must be where you can see what is going on, who is getting what, real time, and there will be process for audit. So what we have seen here is some, romantic and even medieval sense of good guys. Okay, we give them a pot of money, and we say we need to distribute to 200 million or 200,000, whatever it is. It doesn't work. So first is that there must be real see-through in this process. We know each process defined, stage by stage, checklist, this done, that done. And again, the fund management system has to be such that it is clear that you don't need to have access to funds in these transactions. So the head of this NSIPA doesn't have to sit with funds or have access to the fund. This is data, this is verification, this is confirmation. And then a third party, transfers happen, and those transfers are audited. So you, who is the manager, has incentive to go back and audit because you're the one who is doing the transaction. So I think there's some bit of lack of knowledge about incentive structure, how institutions work, and then we design programs that condemn themselves to be ripped off, because basically you are designing program for sense. You're not benefiting from the notion that these systems have designed against the tendency. Corruption is universal, but it's more so in our system.
So with this suspension now, it is expected that it will act as some kind of disincentive or deterrence to any public officer who may want to go in the direction that corruption takes them. To what extent really will this, how different will it be from previous
suspensions
cases
don't have enough bite. So suspension, I mean, look, I've been in office, so let's assume those allegations are true. So suspension, what is it? I think suspension has to go with real investigation, public disclosure of outcome, and prosecution. Again, the thing about corruption anywhere in the world is that the keynote has to come from the presidency. And what that means by keynote is not just saying suspend the ALB, continuity, coherence. So you cannot condone corruption in one sector and signal coherently to others. So people can read it as political vision, might be ethnic, maybe it's not from my area. But once the government is clear and they give a keynote and they are consistent and coherent, then every punishment, every action aligns
will be seen for what it
communicates coherently. So you call it consonance. The messaging is clear. But if once in a while somebody gets his head bopped off because either there's outcry or somebody doesn't like it.
In the good books.
In the good book. That's the kind of thing we see under President Buhari. That's why today we are seeing a lot of reports about corruption, deep corruption in the state, because it's not really a policy of government. And then you create sunshine, create process, accountability, freedom of information, executive order to say that every institution that deals with funds must release documents to whoever asks for them.
Should we be dealing with funds in this way? I mean, you said it was medieval earlier. Should this really be a template in terms of solving the poverty problem? Or should there be more creative, more, not necessarily short term, because you don't fight poverty corruption on the short term.
I think
in the long term.
Yes, the real problem. I'm not even an enthusiast of cash transfer in our economy. Data is not reliable. Two, political opportunism is rife and trump up economic thinking. But the key thing is the real answer to poverty. If you look at Chinese example and across the world, even India, you have to mainstream the poor to public policy. Look at the budgets. Do analysis. I mean, you can't be talking about small tokenism, 5,000, 10,000. The key issue is how do you use public finance to reach out to those who are trapped? How do you develop policies that empower them? Institutions are empowering. So you are using policies to disempower the people. And poverty is actually lack of power, lack of access, and lack of opportunity to be part of a national policy and access to resources. So we need to now rethink our policies. Inequalities across the world. We've seen that most poor countries in the world are countries where there are less access to socioeconomic rights. Look at our constitutional framework of socioeconomic rights. Look at our labor laws. Look at protections within the structure of governance. Look at access to how national budget reflects priorities of economic development and empowerment. So if you create things that reinforce poverty and reinforce inequality, and then you take out some tokenistic engagement. So okay, if I give the 5,000, first it's useless, it's not sustainable, it's not scale enough to change the outcome, and again it does not override the push factor that push people into poverty is stronger than the pull factor that pulls them out of poverty. So you need to reconsider Nigerian state. Nigerian state is extremely over elitist. It has no think around what do people get as of right in a country like Nigeria.
Just by being born in Nigeria.
Being born in Nigeria, what somebody can count on? Access to primary health care, something that you say, look, prenatal care. This is actually, and all these things build together to poverty. So when we talk about poverty, it's not about occasional bailout like 5,000. And again, if you
don't fight it like you're fighting fire.
You fight it as a way of crowdsourcing people back into the mainstream, and that's what is missing in this.
Dr. Sam Amadi, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight tonight.